welcome to the Savvy Young Professional podcast. My name's Tanida Mullen, and I'm here to help you with career, business, and life tips the Savvy way. Welcome to the Savvy Young Professional podcast. My name is Tanida Mullen, and I am super excited to be kicking off episode number 3 with none other than Nicole Longstreath. Nicole is a wardrobe stylist, so guess what? She's going to tell us a little bit about how to go out there and buy the best clothes for not a lot of money. She's going to tell us about branding ourselves with our personal style. And listen, guys, this is something that everyone needs because before you open your mouth, people see you and you want them to see the full package. So, without further ado, please welcome Nicole to the show. So, tell me how you got into the wardrobe styling business.
Sure. Well, my background is in interior design. And for about 4 years, I had worked in kind of like a corporate environment where I was doing commercial corporate interior design. And the first job that I had only lasted a year, unfortunately. It was the total glamour studio job that everybody wants when they're in design school. And I had that right before the crash. And so the crash hit and I got laid off right away because I had the least seniority. And I was unemployed for a couple months. And then I got recruited again into a job that actually paid more, but was like not even half as exciting. It was not anything that I wanted. And I ended up staying in that job for about 3 years until I got laid off again for the second time. But because I really wasn't into my job the second time around, I had started on the side this experiment on a blog that I had at the time where I was shopping only at thrift stores here in Orange County, California, to see if it was possible to build a wardrobe that way. Because, I was really just, because I'd been laid off and I'd landed in this job that I wasn't happy with, I was just kind of like really unsatisfied with, my direction, where I was going. And so I figured if I can make over my image, then something might happen. Something, might happen and move me to where I wanted to be. And it turned out that's exactly what happened. I started dressing in a way that, I had never dressed before. I totally rebuilt my wardrobe. People in Orange County donate. It's an affluent part of the country, so people donate nice things. And suddenly I had this wardrobe that I loved, and that was the first time in my life that had ever been the case. So yeah, that's how I got started. And I got laid off for the second time, and I just decided it would be the natural thing to start a business because getting laid off twice, it was just kind of like I couldn't trust someone else with my career. I had to take it on myself.
Wow, that's powerful, especially, with it being, the podcast and the show being surrounded by the savvy young professional or just the young professional in general. And just the idea of, like you said, taking control of your
hmm
situation and doing what you wanted to do. And so now you are a wardrobe stylist, which sounds like the fun, it sounds so fun. And I'm like, wow, I would love to do something like that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to style, tell me a little bit, or when it comes to style, and the young professional, I noticed that the job market or just, the actual office wear, office attire is becoming a lot more relaxed.
hmm
So, how do you stay stylish without just going into the frumpy mode?
Well, I think that first of all, no one is offended by you being slightly overdressed at work. Like, no one is going to be offended by that. You might have coworkers that might look at you funny or even say something like, "Why are you so dressed up?" And in fact, that phrase, "Why are you so dressed up?" is actually kind of a compliment. They may not mean it as a compliment, and it might not sound like a compliment to you when you hear it. But when someone says, "Why are you so dressed up?" they're acknowledging that you look great. I mean, like I said, nobody's offended. Nobody's going to be offended by you being slightly more dressed up. So I think as a general rule, if you work in an office, a corporate environment, or even a smaller office, I think that the general rule is to look at what your supervisor's wearing and dress at least that level or above, because you don't want to be worried too much about what your coworkers are wearing because you're not there for them. You're there for you, and you're all competing for raises and promotions. And Obviously, I think that your job performance is important, but a lot of it's going to come down to how you look, and that's especially true if you're in any sort of client-facing capacity.
You know what? I think people they don't want to admit that. We're in such a relaxed environment as far as work goes, and everybody's kind
Mhm.
of contracted out and everything. I don't think people realize how big of a deal, how big a style plays into your
Yeah.
career and your perception of people. So, do you think that when it comes to what you have on, it can affect your career?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I work in the most relaxed environment possible. I work in a home office, and I see a lot of the majority of the clients that I work with are over the internet. So I work with styling clients over the internet, and I do work with people here in Orange County as well. But yeah, I think that absolutely the way that you dress affects your mentality, and that it doesn't matter whether you're working from a home office or getting in a car and commuting to an office. I think that what you wear it affects your mindset, and that's going to affect your performance.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. So, someone just getting into their stride with their career and they're really figuring out where they want to be. I know that a lot of the times money can be tight or it can
Mhm.
be an issue. What do you suggest for situations like that?
Like building your core wardrobe for like a professional core wardrobe.
Yeah, building a wardrobe or just trying to make something look decent and look good and gaining some sort of style with not such a big budget.
Yeah. Well, I think that the easiest way to save money on clothing is to know what you're looking for. So I think that there's a lot of wasted money, and all the wardrobes of America are really everywhere. There's a lot of wasted money on bad purchases, things that you bought when, I don't know, maybe you weren't in the right mindset, or things that you bought that for whatever reason you're just not wearing. And so I think that before you ever set out on a shopping trip, whether it's online or you're going out to the mall or wherever you're shopping, I think the best thing that you can do is have a literal inventory of what's already in your closet so that you know what you're working with. It's kind of like if you were preparing, if you were having a dinner party and you wouldn't just invite people over and just make whatever you had on hand. You would probably, or you wouldn't just run to the store and figure it out at the grocery store. You would plan it in advance. You would figure out what recipes you're going to make. You would check your pantry to make sure, what do you have, and then you would figure out what you need based on that. And so I think that you have to take the same approach with your wardrobe. You have to know what you have, you have to know what you're going to need, and you have to know what you need to get. And once you know what those gaps are, what those specific things are that you need, then you got to figure out what your budget is for that. And I think that it's so easy to look at something expensive, and that's an objective term, expensive. It's so easy to look at something expensive and say, I can't afford that. But really, it all comes down to priority. So if your priority is to really look great at work so that you can feel great and perform well and get the raise and get the promotion or get out of that job and get a better job, then what's your priority here? Is your priority to get the best deal on a top, or is your priority to look great and feel great? So, when it comes down to buying something, even if you're on a quote unquote budget, I think that it's important that you're buying the best that you can afford. And think about what you can afford. Think about how much you've typically spent in the past and add 20, 30%. And just do it. Just buy one or two things that you really love. You don't need to buy all of it at once. So when you buy one or two things that you really love every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, I don't know, every paycheck, go out and buy one thing for your wardrobe. The next thing you know, you're buying like $100 silk blouse. And that's a great thing to add to your wardrobe. And it gets you out of that mentality of, I can't afford that. Now you're buying things that you really want, as opposed to, okay, here's the sale rack. How many things can I get for $100?
So it's the quality definitely over the quantity of the items that you buy.
It's definitely the quality, but it's also, like I said, mindset. It's telling yourself that, you you're worth spending the extra money.
Absolutely. And so let's go to the opposite end of it. We talked about working in a more relaxed environment and how to kind of, fit in, style yourself up a little bit. What if you work in an environment that's not so relaxed? So everyone's suit
Mhm.
and tie, pencil skirt, pretty much across the board, everyone looks the same. How do you stand out, especially when you talk about fields such as sales and marketing, where a lot of your appearance does make a difference in how you'll perform at the job? How do you
Mhm.
kind of set yourself apart from looking like everyone else?
Very good question. I think that you have to know what your style muse is. You have to know what your style inspiration is. And you have to be very loyal to that. And creating this loyalty to a style muse concept about yourself that you create, that creates consistency in your look. And then once you have consistency in your look, you develop a signature style that you're known for. So, if you work at a company for 2 years and you're their top sales agent when it comes to bringing in new clients, you can have a signature style, and having that signature style is going to communicate reliability and consistency and dependability, and those are all things that, if you're sales and if you're tasked with bringing in new clients, the people that you work for want to know that they can count on you. And on the other end, I've been in situations where I was the person being sold to, and I have to tell you, the reps that came in a suit every time, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe just like a collared shirt and a pair of chinos, the guy that wore the suit pretty much always got the business. And, I don't think that I was thinking about it consciously at the time, but he always had a better impression on me. So it's not just men that can do that. I think that both with men and women, actually probably more specifically for women, you have to be really in touch with what your style inspiration is. And the thing about that is that it requires study. It requires reflection. It requires studying up on what has inspired you up to this point and what you really like, and thinking about things in a conceptual way and collecting inspiration. I like Pinterest, collecting inspiration on what inspires you and then learning how to translate that into clothing. And it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it's something that you have to cultivate. It's like earning a degree. It really is, or even maybe just a certificate program, but it's like earning something. You have to figure it out and you have to cultivate it. And it's just a process of going back and forth. Cultivate the Pinterest board with imagery, not just outfits or pieces, but like imagery of things that are really inspiring to you. Everything from music to movies to people, everything. Then go to your wardrobe and see how consistent it is. Then go shopping. Then go back to your Pinterest board. Then go to your wardrobe. Then go shopping. And you just repeat the cycle.
I do not know why everyone in the world is not like super stylish, because that sounds like fun to me. I mean, going to the store and then going back on Pinterest, which is a favorite thing for me, and then going to the store. I mean,
Mhm.
I definitely understand what you're saying. It is a process, and it's your style, and your style is not something that just happens overnight, because it's so a
Mhm.
part of you. It's intrinsic. It's something that's just a part of you, just like your name.
Yeah.
You own it, and so it does take time to get to a certain level, and I completely agree with that. So, three things. Let's say,
Mhm.
I'm just starting out. What are three or four? I don't want to limit you to three, and I know that might be
Sure.
hard. But what are maybe a couple of main ideas that I need to think about, or anyone, man, woman, needs to think about when they go out there and they are trying to build those basics?
Like what kind of items? What specific items do you
Right,
think? Okay.
exactly.
Well, for women, and I do mostly style women, but I'm happy to give a little bit of advice for men as well. For women, I think it depends on a couple different things. The first, I would ask, do you like wearing dresses and skirts? Because there are a lot of women who don't. So if that's just something that you can't get down with, that's totally fine. On the other hand, if you like skirts, let's do it. So I think that what you want to have is, you want to have, and this is especially true if you're working in a really buttoned up environment that's client facing. And you know what? Even if you've got a new job and you're just working in a cube and you're not seeing any clients, I think this is still applicable, because again, you're fighting for that promotion, you're fighting for that raise, And you got to stand out in a good way. So I think that the first thing that you want to do for women is you want to have suit separates. So what that is jackets and pants and or skirts and or dresses. So all of these items, jackets, pants, skirts, dresses, are made of the same material, and it's usually like a wool suiting. You definitely want to have something that at least has a wool blend. If not, I think most suits these days are usually like a wool and a stretch combo. So you want to find wool because it drapes nicely, and it's much better than any sort of the synthetic that you can get. So if you just have two suits, that's a good start. And really, all you have to do from that point is just fill in the gaps with blouses and other tops. I would avoid wearing it to the office, but that's up to you. So blouses and other tops and shoes and other pants and skirts and dresses. So start with that foundation of suit separates that all work together. And from that point, if wearing the suit as a suit is kind of too much for your office, then all you have to do is just switch them up. Wear this top with that bottom and this bottom with that top. And, that'll get you started and not looking so buttoned up. And then, like I said, just fill in the blanks from there. Buy other tops, buy other bottoms, skirts, and pants that don't necessarily match with those other suit separates that you already have. And then for men, it's kind of similar. You definitely want to have suits, and you want to have things to put under the suit. So you want to have button-down shirts. You want to have ties for sure. You want to have other jackets, also known as sport coats, that are not necessarily suiting, but are a jacket, a blazer style. And then if you're really preppy, you could put like a sweater over one of those button-down tops and a tie or no tie. The problem with building a wardrobe is that there's endless options. So this is where knowing what your true style concept, your muse is, comes in handy, because then you got to ask yourself, would I wear that? And then, you answer yes or no, and you either buy it or you don't. But I would say for people working in an office, you want to build that base foundation with suit separates, and starting out with two is perfect. And then the last thing is just buy good shoes. Seriously, buy good shoes. If you're okay with buying leather and wearing leather, buy leather shoes. If you can go with something that has a leather sole, perfect. If not, no big deal. Look for a rubber sole, something that absorbs. The idea is that you want to be absorbing the energy. When you step, it absorbs the energy. So that's either leather or like a rubber sole.
Okay. Those are pretty solid tips. I think that's something to go out there and think about, and definitely would suggest, this is me because I actually have used it, going on the website and possibly getting the audit that you, I'm not sure, let me get the right name for that. The sheet with that you go through and
Oh yeah, yeah. That's actually not something that I offer as an opt-in anymore.
ah,
But if you want for your listeners, I can send you a link for them to download it. It's
oh
I
yeah.
believe it was called the Wardrobe Inventory Checklist.
That's exactly what it was called.
Yep. But
I
yeah,
love
I'm
that
totally
thing.
happy to offer it to your listeners. Absolutely.
Okay, you gave me a lot of good info in 20 minutes.
Oh,
That
no
was pretty
problem.
good.
One last thing I wanted to mention is, if you are looking for brands that you can't afford, then a good place to find them is on eBay. And this is especially true for good brands to wear to the office, like J. Crew, Banana Republic, and Taylor. You can go on to eBay and you can actually set up saved searches and actually even alerts. I wouldn't do the alerts unless it's a really specific item that you're looking for. But eBay nowadays has a feed, a kind of like a vertical drop down feed, similar to Pinterest. So what you do is you program in the things that you want to find, and eBay populates that feed with things that it thinks matches what you're looking for. So if you go onto eBay and figure out how to set up a saved search, it'll populate that feed with whatever you're looking for. So you can type in, J. Crew medium, and it'll ask you, do you want to search J. Crew medium in women's? And you can say yes, and you can save it as a search. That way you can kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what it is that you're looking for the office and not have to pay full price.
Wow, that is a good tip because I know a lot of people, when it comes to style, the brands, a lot of the times they're going to give you that quality. I mean,
Hmm.
I have shirts that I've made paid a lot of money for, but I've had them for 3, 4 years later and they still look
Yeah.
amazing. So, I definitely could agree with you in saying go ahead and get those pieces that you maybe a little pricey. And I mean, it's good to know that you can find them somewhere else instead of straight from department store because I know that's tough too.
Yeah. And one other thing, trust your gut, trust your instinct, because if you get something from a brand that you trust and you get it, and this is true for when you buy it new, when you buy it retail. If you get something and you are just not happy or satisfied with the quality, take it back, because I'm not going to name names, but there's a couple brands that have a pretty high-end reputation. And lately I've gotten a couple things from them and it's kind of like, really, are you kidding me? Like they're kind of letting their QA slide a little bit. So yeah, if you have any qualms about the quality of a garment, even if it's from a retailer that you really trust, take it back and tell them why.
Do they typically give that information to the supplier when you tell them?
I don't know exactly how it works internally, but I know that they do analyze returns and tweet them. I mean, I've tweeted brands before, letting them know, what doesn't work for me and what does.
Yeah. And that's actually a good place to find things because, social media, when you're talking about the style muse, there are people that are out there that are, like what you do, wardrobe stylists, people that have brands that are built around style and fashion. And then,
Hmm.
I mean, I know I follow some of those people and I get inspiration from, to put looks together based on those people who have brands based around style. And I always think that it's pretty cool that you can have someone on your feed and you can say, huh, I like that. How can I switch that around or how can I make that, look good on me from me and myself? So
Hmm.
that might be a good way to go too.
Yeah.
Okay, any last things, other websites or places that we need to know about?
For women, I think Pinterest is a great way to develop your style. But I think before you get on Pinterest, I think that it's important for you to look internally. I think it's important for you to sit down and think about, and write down, what has influenced you. And you wanna think of your childhood years, your teenage years, and your young adult years, your 21, 22, 20, 21, 22-year-old times, because those are the times when you were being influenced. Those are the times when, your formative years. And so you want to look at everything that could have influenced you and just, put everything on a special board. You can make it secret if you want. But my best advice is to not censor yourself. Don't censor what inspired you, because you never know how you could reinterpret that. One of my style muses is, I don't know if you remember this movie. It's kind of old, but I think it came out in like 1989, so I would have been 10 years old. But it was called Troop Beverly Hills, and the main character, played by Shelley Long, was Phyllis Neffler, and she was this really quirky Beverly Hills mom who, was like a troop leader, and she did everything totally different, did things her way. And that's one of my muses. And I don't go around dressing like a Beverly Hills mom from the 80s, but I do use her as inspiration to bring out the quirkiness in my personality, to bring out the luxury in my personality. So it's not necessarily about interpreting things literally. It's just about using inspiration. So get everything on that Pinterest board and then take stuff away if you need to, but don't censor yourself. But first, start with a list. Just start with a list, and then add to it. It's not all going to happen at once. It's really more of a question you plant in your brain, and then inspiration is going to come to you periodically, probably, usually at the most inconvenient time. So, don't fight it when it comes. If it's, when you've gone to bed and you're trying to go to sleep, or if you're in the shower or someplace where you don't have any way to write anything down, just always remember, or try to write down if you can, that specific piece of inspiration, because it's probably pretty important if it came to you.
Wow. And that's true. That's very interesting, and that's a different spin on it because I think sometimes when we have the muse or someone that inspires us, some people like to take that very literally, like you were saying earlier. And it's so important, I think, to have your own style and look at something and say, "Oh wow, well that's Tanita," or "I know that's Nicole. That's something that she would wear," and developing that because it's so easy to look at something and say, "Ooh, you know what? If Nicki Minaj can wear it, I can wear it too." You know what I mean? But it's not always like that. So,
Yeah, not always, no. And something else is it's entirely possible that there will be a phase of your life where everything that's available is not your style. I'm going through it right now. Everything right now, all the tops that are available and all the brands that I like, they're all really baggy. They're all not the right neckline for me. They all have this giant wide arm that's kind of like, it's not a cap sleeve, but it's like a huge wide arm opening. Long story short, none of these cuts look good on me. And I know that because I know what looks good on me. And so, needless to say, it's kind of frustrating. Everything right now just isn't my style. But I'm not buying a bunch of stuff that doesn't work for me simply because it's the only thing available. Sometimes you just have to hold out. Sometimes you just have to figure out what works best for you and only buy that stuff. And if it means that, you haven't bought a blouse in 6 months because nothing that you found is your style, that's probably a better place to be than to have a closet that's bursting at the seams with a bunch of stuff that doesn't work for you.
and a money saver.
Totally. Yeah.
Great. Well, I want to thank you so much for all this great information. And I'm hoping that people will go out there and find their style muse and, take the inventory, see what they have, and find their style and own it. Because I think that when you look good, just like you said earlier, when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, I mean, you always perform great.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
thanks, Nicole, and I will keep in touch with you. You can find all the links and resources mentioned in this podcast in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this podcast, head over to thesavvyYP.com for more career, business, and life tips. Keep it savvy,